Now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Order, honourable members. I've been informed that the whippery has agreed that there will be no notices of motion or motion without notice. I would like to announce the appointment of Honorable Oliphant. The member was sworn in today. She's not in the house. No, I'll do that officially when it's in the house. Before we proceed to questions, I would like to announce that the programming committee has agreed that the Minister of Tourism will respond to oral questions on Thursday, the 26th of October. Therefore, the House will not deal with the item today. Let me take this opportunity to officially welcome the ministers and the deputy minister. You are welcome in the NCOP. Honorable Mokwele, let me deal with the point of order.
Yeah, Chair, you know, it has come to our attention that ministers, after we have approved the program and we have prepared, that the order is particular for a particular department, that they don't attend to the House. It is a concern, Honorable Chair, that we are raising before you. Look into the matter. Let it be for the last time. It has been now for 3 ministries, if I'm not mistaken. So this tourism, we allow it for the last time because we have approved the program yesterday. All the amendments were supposed to be informed at the programming meeting. So I'm pleading with you, Chair, that this mistake must never happen again.
No, thanks. Thanks, Honorable Mokwele. The issue will be attended accordingly at the programming meeting. Yeah. Honorable Programming Whip, Honorable Pakis.
Chair, in this case, we must clarify it. In this case, the minister was not at fault. It was on the basis of the overseas trip of the committee, the select committee. Hence, we collectively agreed that we can postpone it to another session. It's not because the minister was not available.
Honorable members, I'm not going to be making the plenary to be the programming. It will be addressed at that level, and thanks for the clarification. Let me officially welcome Honorable Oliphant. Honorable Oliphant, you are welcome in the NCOP. This is the new member that has replaced Honorable Manopule from the Northern Cape. Before we proceed, honorable members, let me indicate that time for reply per question is 5 minutes, and time for asking a supplementary question is strictly 2 minutes, and time for replying to supplementary question is 4 minutes, and only 4 supplementary questions is allowed per question. We are going to start with the Minister of Public Enterprise. Honorable Minister, for convenient and be able to see the members, it will be in order to come in front at the podium so that you can be able to see people that are asking the questions. We are starting with question 303 asked by Honorable Ngwenya. Honorable Ngwenya is not in the house, and in terms of the rule, Honorable Mokwele will be standing for Honorable Ngwenya. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The annual report considered at the Denel 2017 AGM was valid, as it had a properly issued audit report dated 30th of July 2017. This has been signed off by the external auditors, Sizwe Saluba Kobodo. The issue of whether the 30th of July, by the 3rd of October, SNG came back to Denel to tell Denel that they had to add a sentence into their report. It is now in an arbitration process. I've called a meeting with the AG's office, with SNG and Denel to try to resolve this matter. Therefore, based on the above, I'm not in a position yet to take action against Denel. I must give them a fair chance and a proper opportunity to reach an agreement in terms of the arbitration. So the assertion that an incorrect annual report was tabled to Parliament is incorrect and premature at this stage.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Mokwele.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Minister. I hear you, Minister, you are saying you are going to give Denel enough chance to deal with the matter. But my question to you, Minister, is that for how long will you allow the process to continue? And for how long will you act as a minister on the matter? How long are you going to give the Denel a chance to do that? I so wish I had another chance to ask, because whatever that you are going to say will have a follow-up question. Chair, if you can allow
I'm happy that you understand that it's a supplementary question, not supplementary questions. Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Thank you very much to the member. I actually gave them until Tuesday this week. So they had this week in which to report this matter to me. They have brought me a report. It isn't a conclusive report. So now it means I have to go to the second phase, and then in a week's time, I should have resolved this matter. And I'm sure I will send the honourable member a letter to tell her that this matter, how I've resolved the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Julius.
Baie dankie, agbare ondervoorsitter. Minister, you said that it was not an incorrect report submitted to the Portfolio Committee. I think it was Wednesday, last week Wednesday. Now, the Auditor General informed that this was an incorrect report because other things were omitted, and the NEL refused to add them to the report. Now, my question is, just like KPMG, we now have SNG, you know, with these dodgy audit reports. Do you agree with the AG, or do you agree with SNG or the NEL? Because SNG, concurrently with the AG, changed their report afterwards. Who do you agree with?
Honourable Minister.
The honourable member is getting ahead of himself with all his G's. The honourable member must know that I will only take a decision where once the process has actually walked its full process. Because you can't just make a decision. I'm not overseeing a spaza shop. I'm actually overseeing a big state-owned company. So 2 weeks is enough time in which to deal with the matter. You must remember that AGMs are important institutions. It's where the annual reports are tabled. And when an annual report is tabled, it means it has been approved. So anything that happens after that, I have to take cognizance of, and I have to look at it, and I have to arbitrate it. Because an AGM is where we assume that that is what is factual and the right thing. So I'm in an arbitration process with the AG's office, SNG, and Denel, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to I'll be able to tell you who I am now deciding with within a week's time.
Thank you. Honorable Prince.
Minister, thank you for the response. My question is, can you ensure this House that there will be actions will be taken against the people if after this intervention that they are busy with now? Can you assure the House that you will take actions?
Honorable Minister.
Yes, of course, Honourable Member Prince. If it is within the state-owned company, then we will ask the board to take action against the company, because annual statements are actually statements that are drawn up by the executives of companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 282 asked by Honorable Pakis. Honorable Minister.
ISCOM is not actually aware of a request for 3 billion capital injection. In fact, I'm not aware of a 3 billion capital injection. So if I had more information, guidance or reference to this request in order to enable in order for me to be able to respond to this question. However, it's a very, very good question, because it does speak to the issue of SOCs in distress. And what is it that we do when an SOC is in distress? Now, there are more than I know members in this House who have called me, or the chair of the portfolio committee has called me about being stuck on the airplane at the airport because of SA Express. Now, SA Express is one such company. So what we do is we get them to draw up a business case. And that business case has to have a financial basis for how it can be met. And then the department, National Treasury, and the company goes into levels of discussion to look at whether it is a guarantee, to look at whether it is the company building in greater prudency within its own spending patterns, to see whether we are able to get the company to come in line. And sometimes it means very stringent prudency actions that the company needs to take. And then we look at what the funding model should be. I must say that after Eskom's 23 billion rand bailout, I haven't had such a problem yet. I do have that problem in relation to SA Express at the moment. But that is also another problem, because SA Express can't exist without SAA. And so it is in us bringing the two companies with Mango together that the financial basis will be stronger. And because of that, there'll be greater economies of scale within the airline or the aviation industry within the country. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Prince.
Person, Honorable Minister.
It's fine. Honorable Pakis is fine, Honorable Kaul. No, we are fine, Honorable Prince. We're not going to fall. It's covered.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question to the Minister is, how far is the merger of some SOEs who's not profitable, the plans of the merging of the SOEs who's struggling, whatever, who's struggling with finances, who's not financially financially let me reframe it. What are you doing?
Honorable Prince.
Is there plans
Honorable
in
Prince,
place?
can you be closer to the mic?
Is there any plans in place to merge some of those entities who is not profitable? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Actually, the Honourable Prince doesn't ask about a specific area of mergers, but she does raise a wide-ranging question that covers probably the 700 state-owned companies and entities that's within my portfolio. So there are many mergers that could happen out of all of those state-owned companies. So in essence, the one big merger that could happen is the merger of the airlines. But there could be other mergers as well. That is part of the SOC reform, and the Deputy President chairs that. So and it's going to take probably years before we get to that process. At this point, we're dealing with the airline merger. It's led by National Treasury, and as soon as we now have a report from Baines, the company that actually worked on that, and as soon as we are able to bring the two companies, we want to try and stabilize all the companies before we actually put them into a joint venture. We will be able to have done that. But having said that, I don't want to mislead the House by saying, telling you that there might be other mergers as well. We haven't made that decision yet. We have to look at all 700 companies eventually. We are now looking at the 22 companies that are Schedule 2 companies within the state-owned company family. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Engelbrecht.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Minister, to ensure that Eskom remains in a strong financial situation, it's very important to ensure that the major cost drivers are kept down. So I'd like to find out from you, what will your plan be to ensure that the staff costs are reduced, that the debt costs are reduced, consultants is reduced, and of course the big challenge that we have is the municipal debt, which is rising. And what are your plans to reduce these issues? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
I hope I have an hour in which to answer that question. But if I start with the last one first, because I remember it better after 50. In terms of the debt, the municipal debt, we have the team with COCTA, SALGA, ourselves, National Treasury, and Energy. And then each one of the municipalities. What Eskom has done up until now is reach agreement with all the municipalities as to how to pay. But members here actually represent provinces. You know in your own provinces that there are municipalities that will never be able to afford this debt. So we've looked at a number of financial ways to get them out of it. SALGA's now put forward the fact that they want to be distributors themselves in terms of the Constitution. Now, again, not all the municipalities have that capability to do so. So some municipalities have paid back some of the money. Others haven't yet paid back. Others are just not able to pay back. They don't even have an economic base within their municipality. They don't have a business in this municipality that can carry them, for example. Or so in terms of the at the moment, though, Eskom is in Eskom has made a profit of about 1 million this year, 1 billion this year, just under 1 billion. I think it's 900 and something million. The year before, they made a profit of 5 billion. And the reason why the profit was lower this year is that more of their build program, the IPPs, had to be paid for. So that is why it's about 4 billion rand less. But it has, I mean, later I will deal with this issue around irregular expenditures and those kinds of things, because I think that's also an important part of it. And so the way we oversee the company is through the shareholder compact. And the shareholder compact has a financial component where we see their finances on a quarterly basis. And I then have my units oversee what Eskom is doing. They've driven down their costs quite well over the last 3 years. In fact, that's part of why in 2015, Eskom was actually on the verge of bankruptcy. So in 2015, we actually were able to pull Eskom out of that through the 23 billion bailout, but more importantly as well, getting Eskom to have its own BPP, its business processing dealt with, so that they cut down on costs. For example, you probably saw in the media recently the costs of the chairs. Now, I saw that as well, and of course, it's the largest company in the country, so it has to purchase chairs. But does it have to purchase chairs at that price? That's the question that you have to ask. And the only thing, as an oversight department, that is what I see as my responsibility, to help them to drive down their costs. So if they do business day, sorry? If they do, I just have...
Honorable Minister, you are protected. Honorable Julia Scott.
Sorry, I got a big shock that I got smacked from the side.
Honorable Faber.
If they have any of those issues, we have to deal with the matter. So it's not in a financial crisis at the moment. And we continuously have to ensure that they stay where they are. And I can tell you, the 15th of January 2015, they were in a financial crisis. They're not there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Makwebo.
Nkosi Sihlalo, ndiyabulela. Mphathiswa ngicela ukubuza. This past Sunday, in the Sunday newspapers, an article was published that is very disturbing, and it borders on your integrity and your fitness as the member of the executive. That article indicated that your partner and your long-time girlfriend received oil tenders from Eskom despite having no expertise in the industry. Now, as you're standing there now, could you tell us as members of parliament and the fellow South Africans at home whether this article is true or not?
Honorable Makwebo.
Thank you.
You know, order members, Honorable Makwebo, you know that the supplementary question must be linked to the original question. And your supplementary question, let me leave that to the Honorable Minister if it's going to comment about it. Honorable Minister.
I'll be delighted to respond to that question, Honourable Member, because you probably didn't read the newspaper the night and the next day, where both of those issues have been refuted. I've actually taken that matter to the press ombudsman. Because I really do think that, unfortunately, my own character and my integrity was damaged very greatly in that question. In fact, as I walked in here, somebody asked me, I'm sure it's somebody here, asked me about the question about the oil deal. Now, it's not true. And I have refuted the question. I have refuted the issue. There were 2 questions, there were 2 articles after that were also in the newspaper, which I think you missed, that also refuted that issue. Or you read selectively.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 291 asked by Honorable Julius. Honorable Minister.
Maybe you and Donald Trump thinks it's for fake news. I don't. I'm not like Donald Trump and you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. We know who the Trumpites are here. In terms of the Electricity Regulation Act, only NERSA can determine the tariff that Eskom may charge its customers. Eskom is required to apply for its allowed revenue in terms of the MYPD methodology. This is what has been done. Thank you. The MYPD methodology is developed for the regulation of Eskom's required revenues. It forms the basis on which the National Energy Regulator, or NERSA, will evaluate the price adjustment applications received from Eskom. The MYPD was first introduced in 2006 for implementation from the 1st of April 2006 to 31st of March 2009. It is a cost of service-based methodology with incentives for cost savings and efficient and prudent procurement and overall operations by the licensee. And in this case, the licensee is Eskom. The methodology also provides for services quality incentives for Eskom. The MYPD runs concurrently with Eskom's financial years. In developing the MYPD methodology, the following objectives were adopted: ensure Eskom's sustainability as a business and limit the risk of excess or inadequate returns while providing incentives for new investments; to ensure reasonable tariff stability and smooth changes over time; to appropriately allocate risk between Eskom and its companies, so Eskom carries some risk and the clients carry some risk; to provide efficiency incentives without leading to unintended consequences; to provide a systematic basis for revenue tariff setting; and to ensure consistency between price control periods. So it is really about regulating the relationship between Eskom, its client, and how it is able to raise or buy back what it has put into the company reasonably. So, for example, if Kusile Unit 1 has been launched, then there's 800 megawatts. They sell a certain amount of megawatts, and they're allowed to claw back from the customer a certain amount of money. Not all the money. They can claw back a certain amount of money in terms of the customer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I think, yeah, it was a very academic answer, but let's get practical. In our SOEs, just like the SAA bailout, taxpayers' money is being spent every year for these huge amounts of bailouts. Ordinary taxpayers in South Africa, yet they never set foot in a plane. But they must pay for SAA that doesn't make money. The same now with Eskom. You want an increase, Minister. Currently, you are producing too much electricity, right? And that's a fact, which is resulting in an oversupply of electricity. As we all know, we cannot store this electricity because, and every day it's leading to a waste. Now you're asking an almost 20% increase on the cost of electricity next year. Currently, electricity is so expensive, but municipalities are going bankrupt, even though the sale of electricity forms the bulk of their income. And you said it yourself now, some municipalities will never be able to pay. It causes a Laffer curve. In other words, if it's too expensive, people will go off the grid. We'll sell less electricity and the price will still increase and increase and increase, which have a very negative impact on our economy. Minister, by rapidly increased electricity prices by 19.9%, not only will less people be able to afford this vital service, but the non-payment of electricity will push municipalities into a deep, deep, dark well. Therefore, can you justify, based on the severe consequences that this will have, because municipalities, I can guarantee you, will collapse, how can you justify this increase based on the consequences that it will have on local government and the economy at large? Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Member tries to confuse the public constantly. When you say, Minister, how can you, Eskom goes and makes application, the Minister doesn't make application. You must remember, I'm not in charge of Eskom. I have oversight. I'm sorry that you don't read your laws. I'm very sorry that you don't read your laws. I can't be held responsible for that. If you read your law, and let me take you there, go to the Companies Act. The Minister doesn't apply for an electricity increase. Eskom applies for an increase. The fact that you are unable to understand it is not my problem. But having said that, you make some very important points. And I think that I don't play politics with people's lives. You see, I don't do that. Because I really feel very strongly.
Minister, let me take the point of order. Honorable Mokwele.
Can you tell the minister that whatever that she wants to say, must say it through you?
Oh, yes.
And if it's not like that, we will exchange words with her. We'll do that. We have that power to do that.
Honorable
Mokwele.
No. Honorable Ntebe, we are out of order.
It doesn't mean she's capable if she's making noise.
Honorable Mokwele, your point of order is sustained. But there's no need, after you have made your point of order, to make some other remarks. Your point of order is sustained. Honorable Minister, we are speaking to the NCOP through the presiding officer. Continue, Honorable Minister, and you are protected.
I'm very sorry, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the issue is, the Honorable Julius makes a very, very important question. We must get to a point where the regulation of electricity prices are within the boundaries, and that is why we have NERSA. NERSA manages that process so that it doesn't do what the Honorable Julius says it will do. It will go sky high, people won't be able to afford it, all of those kinds of things, that it's not outside of people's management power. So you must remember that last year, Eskom only got 2% from NERSA. That is part of regulation. That is what this state has put in place, to bring only 2% increase. The year before that, they got 8%. So they have spent the 19%, and that's what they're wanting to claw back. So NERSA brings them down and say, yes, you've spent that 19%, but we say this year, because of these economic and these social factors, you will only get 2%, or you will only get 8%. You must go and also acquaint yourself with the Electricity Regulation Act, because it's actually in there. It says how it regulates it, so that this government doesn't want our people to be poor. This government has put in place a number of policies across the board to ensure that we are able to pick people up who are in those positions.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Zwane, Honorable Dlamini. I'm looking at Honorable Dlamini and I'm saying Honorable Zwane. Sorry, Honorable Manget. Honorable Dlamini.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And thanks, Minister, for the responses. My question,
Order members.
my question,
I
Chair,
hope you
is
also
that
do like them.
the recent statistics by Stats SA indicates that more than 50% of our people live below poverty lines. With this approval, just want to check, Honorable Minister, are there plans in place to assist those who cannot afford?
Honorable Minister.
Now, remember, we are not distributors in all, the municipalities are the distributors. So there is a plan in place, and that is the direct payment from National Treasury to the municipality for indigency. And that is how we ensure that those who are very poor can actually apply for indigency. And I think what we should be doing collectively is to ensure that all our municipalities actually apply for this indigency. Because some municipalities actually don't apply for it, and so people are not they have access to the indigency policy. So we must just try and work on that as well. Because it's quite, sometimes they pay back, the municipalities pay back something like 30% of indigency policy monies that they've not been able to spend or they don't use within their municipality, or people don't know about it within their municipalities. And you give me an idea. It's something that we also have to try and focus on. Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Ncita.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Let me appreciate the response from the Minister. But what I would like to know from the Minister, if NERSA set down the tariffs, do the municipality have a right to have an increase over and above what is set down by NERSA? And is it legal to do so?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Yes, that's why when NERSA when ESCOM applies for its full amount, it never ever gets the full amount it applies for. It hasn't gotten the full amount since 2001, I think. And that is because the municipalities and the National Treasury gives the municipalities the upper limit it can apply for. And this year, National Treasury gave them an upper limit of 8%. So we can't actually, or NERSA will try and find a way not to bring both that throws people over the poverty line. But municipalities do increase it themselves.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Tape Blanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable Minister, thank you. You explained to us quite nicely what your responsibilities are. Minister, my question is, despite the fact that you said that you are not in control of the price increases and so on, as a responsible minister of this country, are you concerned, Minister, that the prices are increasing at a rate that people cannot really afford? Are you concerned about that, Minister, in the first instance? Secondly, Minister,
Honourable Tape Blanche, it's a supplementary question. It's not supplementary questions.
Okay, I will stop there then, but I want to know,
Yeah,
The
allow the
Minister,
minister to
whether she's
respond to
concerned
your question.
About job creation and
You
people
have
that
made,
cannot work.
you
Thank
have made your question. Let's allow
you.
the minister to deal with your question.
You know, Honorable
Order, Minister. Sorry, Minister.
Sorry.
Honorable members, I don't need your assistance. You are creating an unnecessary confusion. I'm assisting Honorable Tape Blanche, and the Honorable Minister is going to respond to the question. Honorable Minister. Honorable Julius.
Thank you. My apologies, Honorable Minister, but if you make a ruling, you say members. Say ANC members.
No,
It's
we're
there.
out of order. Take your seat, Honorable
Because
Julius.
you refer to me
No,
also, I'm not
Julius.
out of order.
What I'm saying, it's applicable to all
ANC
members of the
members
National
try to-
Council of Provinces. Honorable Minister, can you continue with your response?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. You know, when we took over in 1994, when we came into power, because we are a caring government, it was the first time that we could increase electricity to poor black people's homes. Now you must remember, pre-1994, didn't happen. There was 5 million households, largely white, who had access to electricity. This concerned government has increased that to 11 million households. The answer I would give you is, sir, does that not tell you that we are very, very concerned?
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 284, asked by Honorable Singh. In terms of the rule, is not in the House, and Honorable Zwane will be standing for Honorable Singh. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. In instances where an individual employed at a state-owned company within the portfolio of the Department of Public Enterprises is found guilty through a process of investigation as conducted by the state-owned company. It is the responsibility of the respective SOC to follow the necessary due processes in order to institute criminal proceedings against the individuals concerned in accordance with the entity's own fraud and corruption management framework, and to ensure that such framework is complied to by employees. The SOCs report to the department on a quarterly basis through the quarterly performance report on any cases of fraud and corruption that the entity is handling for the period under review, as well as tabling a report on irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure as part of its integrated annual report. And the integrated annual report is a public report, so they report that. Normally you'll see them on television, but they normally report it into the public space. At the company's annual general meeting, and then ultimately it comes to Parliament. Against this background, as Minister, I do not pursue criminal charges against an individual directly, except when responding to matters reported directly to the department through whistleblowing cases made by the general public or employees within the state-owned companies themselves. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister, for the answer that you have given, because sometimes it's very easy to confuse the powers and functions of the minister versus the powers and functions of the state-owned enterprises and the boards thereof. Nonetheless, I would like to seek further clarity, Minister, that in terms of the cooperative governance model of the state-owned enterprises, can the minister intervene if there is a need to intervene outside of the board of that SOE, or the board is the only conduit that the minister can use to intervene in certain specific matters?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I will respond to this in a later question, but I have intervened now. Remember, I said earlier that there are a number of issues that have come to the fore with the state-owned companies in my portfolio. And so I have appointed an SIU. It's now with the President, and the President must sign off on it. I've asked for an overriding investigation into two areas in specific, into procurement practices and also into contract management, because that will cover all the matters that are bubbling within the public space. So the issues around Trillian, McKinsey, all of that will be part of the overriding investigation. And also looking at all the little investigations. I don't know if you saw on television yesterday with what's happening in the Portfolio Committee. I mean, there have been investigations into ESCOM, for example, since whenever. But all of those investigations, we've got to bring it together and see what are the trends and the practices within the company that should be dealt with. And that is what I've done now with the SIU. But generally, the board is actually responsible for the running of the company. But in order to deal with the issues at the moment, I've dealt with it in terms of the SIU. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Isaac.
Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. Hello, good afternoon, Minister. Minister, I hear what you say, and I take in cognizance and recognize exactly what you're saying as far as this question is concerned. But, Minister, the department has a record of officials, as you know well, that is charged with misconduct, resigning before the department's disciplinary actions have been concluded. So first, if these charges are then not being taken further by the department, then these ex-employees are then obviously not blacklisted by the department. And finally, they even go on to claim their pensions. You're full well with me on this one. What measures then, Honourable Minister, I must ask, are being currently undertaken to stop this practice before their pensions are paid out? And I'm sure that'll be easy for you to handle, Minister.
Honourable Minister.
I'm so grateful that you give me easy questions. Thank you very much. Honourable Chair, I must tell you that the Honourable Member has now turned to another matter which isn't actually in this question. So I would like him to put that question to me in writing so that I can respond to him in detail. Because the details of that question, we're talking about 10 years of activities, so the details are long, and if he puts that on paper for me, I'll be delighted to respond to you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question 299 asked by Honourable Kaula. Honourable Minister.
I've been in the opposition too long. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairperson. The 922 million, this is Honourable Kaula from the IFP. He asks, the 922 million includes 229.8 million relating to the prior year, which would then make it 254.8 million. Now the 229 million arose due to tax compliance requirements, and this is within Transnet, for foreign vendors with no local presence in South Africa. Transnet disclosed the 229.8 million as under investigation in the prior year as agreement with SARS and National Treasury had not yet, as an agreement with SARS and National Treasury, and have not yet been reached. However, this was subsequently condoned by National Treasury as it was out of Transnet's control. And a formal process goes forward, has been agreed with SARS and National Treasury on how to treat foreign vendors that do not operate in the country. Eskom notes that the irregular expenditure balance at the end of the year has increased from 348 million, that's 2015-16, to 2.9 in 16-17, as shown below, 3 billion. This is the net of amounts condoned and not recoverable. Now, the current year, the opening balance, they had 348 million of irregular expenditure from the year before. And it is also to do with foreign vendors. Then the current year's expenditure is 4 billion. Now, let me just give you the table that gives, I'm not sure how much detail I should give you, but let me speak on a breach of Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act was 95 million rand. Tender process not adhered to, commitments made before approval, 549 million rand. And that was quality management, 1.5 billion. Tax clearance certificates, did not obtain tax clearance certificates for international suppliers, was 1.4 billion. Non-compliance with the CIDB, Construction Industry Development Board regulations, and then the breach of, that was 97 million. Breach of PFMA, the use of sole source, and tender process not adhered to. There were 3 incidents of irregular expenditure, totaling 96 million, where the use of sole sources could not be adequately justified. There were 11 incidents of irregular expenditure, totaling 189 million, where approved supply chain management process were not adhered to. So you see my justification for procurement, for investigating procurement and contract management is very justified if we just look at the irregular and wasteful expenditure within the 2 largest state-owned companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Kaula.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo hloniphekile. Thanks, Honorable Minister. This is very confusing. There is so much confusion in the country. One is not sure whether by the end of the day we'll still be having a deputy president, or whether by the end of the day you will still be Minister of Public Enterprise.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Kaula.
The responses you have given me, Minister, thank you very much. The Minister has spoken on the issues of breach of procurement, Preferential Procurement Act, irregular tenders, tax clearances not submitted, non-compliance, breach of PFMA, rules and processes of procurement not adhered to, and so on and so forth. Now, Honorable Minister, as South Africans, we have got ministers of departments who are responsible on our part as citizens for ensuring that they monitor compliance with all these issues. Now, when these things are happening under your watch, Minister, how should South Africans really have confidence in you as a minister, in the other ministers? Because I understand you are saying there are boards that are dealing with these things, but as South Africans, we have a minister who is our rep to monitor that all these wrong things don't happen? And secondly, Chair, when these things happen, they take too long to be sorted out. We are talking here, especially
Honorable
with
Kawood,
Eskom.
Honorable Kawood, don't spoil it.
I've got 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I've got 2 minutes.
it's a supplementary question.
Yes,
Yeah,
I've got 2 minutes.
okay.
And Chairperson, the challenge here is that corrective measures, it takes years before government can now sort out whatever wrongs that were there, and some of them end up not being sorted out. So my question to you is, as it stands, how should we have confidence in government when these things are let out to go
Honorable
for so long
Kaula.
and they are not attended to?
Honorable Minister,
The Honorable Member Kaula will know that you only really know, that's why we have the checks and balances in place, where you only really know, if he listens, you only really know that we get to know what sits in the financial package at the end of the financial year. So then we know what has gone wrong, and then we've got to fix what has gone wrong. So there has been a number of recovery plans within both Eskom and Transnet. It includes disciplinary measures, and these are in the process of being executed because some of these matters have been violations of a PFMA, which is an absolute basic. But we've also gone a step further and have dealt with the matter in terms of rolling out of PFMA training to all operating divisions. Remember, Eskom has 42,000 workers. It's decentralized spending. Transnet has 61,000 workers. Inclusion of PFMA training in new employee induction manuals, forensics and procurement training on procurement processes, additional data analytic indicators developed, and emphasis on contract management. A specific total of 158.6 million relates, for example, to fraud out of the sum that you've given me in terms of Transnet. Now that will potentially be recovered by Transnet because that's what Transnet has to do. So in essence, a critical financial control step-up initiative that was launched in December 2016 to review the control gaps emanating from year-end PFMA findings and developing and implementing solutions to improve the control environment, updating all the relevant documents such as the control frameworks, the policies and procedures, and of course, most important is ensuring that the staff is continuously trained to ensure that we are able to deal with these issues. But bigger than that, I still believe, and that is why I went on the SIU process. I still believe that some of these things are systemic within the state-owned companies. It hasn't happened because I'm the minister. It's happened when somebody else was the minister a long time ago. Eskom's almost 100 years old. Remember Spoornet was there when you were a little boy, running around on the railway lines. Now, it happened a long, long time ago. And I think some of the processes are processes that we must uproot once and for all. This legacy that I want to leave is a legacy that starts a new path of dealing with our state-owned companies. Thank you very much.
thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Nita.
Thank you, Chair. Although the Minister have partly touched on the follow-up that
Can you
I
have the
wanted to
mic
ask.
closer to you?
What I wanted to ask, Chair, because it was more about systems set in place to ensure that such occurrences, they don't repeat itself. He partly touched on them when she was responding, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. No. You are fine. Thank you, thank you. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 292 asked by Honorable Julius. Honorable Minister.
The matter of ESCOM payments is receiving attention and forms part of investigations undertaken by several relevant state institutions, and such investigations are still in the early stages. The Special Investigative Unit is one of the state institutions empowered by legislation and tasked with dealing with the issues of corruption. The department has an MOU with the SIU to ensure that these matters receive urgent attention. The motivation submitted to the Honorable President, Jacob Zuma, requests a proclamation to be issued in order to authorize the SIU to, among others, investigate irregular payments or procurement that will facilitate through the improper conduct of employees of ESCOM with undisclosed or unauthorized conflicts of interest or any other person or entity in order to unduly benefit themselves or others through corrupt or fraudulent means. In addition, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises commenced with its hearing aimed at further investigations into the allegations of corruption in ESCOM affairs. Once all these investigations are concluded, it is inevitable that when there are allegations of wrongdoing against any official individual, criminal charges will be laid against that person and the law will take its course. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, just to use up my 2 minutes, based on your previous explanation that you only do oversight over SOEs, I think with loud applause by the ANC, I must explain something to you that as a member of parliament, I hold you accountable. I cannot go to NERSA and ask questions. I cannot go to ESCOM and ask questions. I put my questions straight to you, Minister, because they fall under your watch. As a member of parliament, I think you would also understand that. Now, Minister, I don't know whether they want to answer on your behalf, Minister, or he wants your position on what. But, Minister, we have seen investigation after investigation leading nowhere in state-owned enterprises. But you also have a right. There are allegations. And like you just said now, whether the allegations are there, then criminal charges will be laid. Why don't you just lay criminal charges? These investigations are all there just to prolong the process and defend the corrupt. You have a right to lay criminal charges because there are allegations already. Why do you have to wait for investigations, Minister? Will you lay charges on the guilty parties because there are allegations? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister.
I can't. I'm neither a prosecutor nor a police nor a judge. What will happen is we will look, there are people, we have done small investigations that we can cover in the company, and there are people who are facing disciplinary hearings at the moment. So we've done that in relation to the company you've raised with me. But the bigger financial investigation must happen. We've got to give people a fair chance, and we've got to hear from them what they are saying. At the moment, I can't read the newspaper, and the allegations are dealt with in the newspaper. So I can't just lay charges against, because you must remember we're dealing with a company here. The company is ESCOM. And so you don't just you just don't go and lay charges to all the people who have businesses with ESCOM. You've got to investigate whether there's any who says that? You've made that decision. So we've got to actually ensure that we investigate, and if there is prima facie evidence, that we take the process forward. And that's what we are doing at the moment.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Nita.
Chair, appreciating the response from the minister that is not the person that is directly involved in taking criminal charges or DC. What I would like to know from the minister, do you get regular reports of such cases that are dealt with boards of the entities? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I actually get quarterly reports of all the investigations into all the companies and all the individuals who are investigated. And for the two large companies, they're actually quite many. Thank you very much.
Honorable Makwebo.
Ngosihlalo ndiyabulela. Minister, as you know, for law enforcement agencies to successfully investigate these cases, and they will need cooperation from officials, and in this instance, officials from your department and from entities that you have an oversight role on. Now, would you commit to ensure that the officials in your department, they cooperate and encourage their cooperation so that the police can successfully and speedily investigate these matters and bring them before the courts of laws? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister.
Of course.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mohapi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, we have observed that there are allegations of wrongdoing in and around the country. But one has also observed the possibility where people are abusing the little information that our communities are having with regard to the accuracy of the information. What is it that the minister is planning to do to ensure that our people are not fed up with wrong information for the mere fact that people want to give a bad reflection of the government of the day?
Honorable Minister.
To tell the truth. We must tell the truth. We must tell communities the truth about what is happening. There is a narrative that has been decided elsewhere, and that narrative said, in fact, everybody in this, not everybody, but there's a large number in this House thinks that all the SOCs are dependent on loans. They can't run anywhere else. They run on loans. There are many, many SOCs that do not depend on loans. There are many, many SOCs that do not even have guarantees. But because you say it often enough, it sounds like SOCs are all dependent, and I'm just using an example, all dependent on loans. I mean, a company like Transnet actually doesn't have a guarantee. It has a smallish guarantee to just see it through, but it actually lives off its own balance sheet. Sorry.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thanks, Honorable Kaula, for respecting whilst the Minister was still responding, and I indicated that I've noted you. I'm recognizing you now.
Thanks, Chair. My point of order, Chair, is why is Honorable Mohapi defending the criminals?
Honorable Kaula. Honorable members, order members, honorable members, allow me to thank Honorable Minister Brown, Minister of Public Enterprise, for availing herself to answer questions. Thank you, Minister. Let me take this opportunity now and invite Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Pando. We are also given the platform in front. Honorable Minister, we'll be starting with question 277. It has been asked by Honorable Sefako. It's not in the House, and Honorable Mtimunye will be standing in for Honorable Sefako. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity to respond to questions in this House. With respect to the question from Honorable Sefako, I think it's important to say that the private sector makes a significant contribution toward innovation in our country in a range of areas. For example, banking services are changing and improving every day. Many of the changes that we see are innovative. The services we receive in our homes, the products that we buy from day to day. So there's a wide range of innovation. However, it's very difficult for our department to be able to give a definitive indication of the contribution that the private sector is making to innovation. We would have to go from private sector business to business, identify product to product, identify new biometric process and other changes, and then itemizing that, give you a response. So I'm going to refer, Chairperson, to two instruments that we have as the Department of Science and Technology, which serve as an indicator of the contribution and investment by the private sector to research, development, and innovation. The first one is annually we conduct a national survey on research and development expenditure in South Africa. The survey records both public and private sector investment in RDI. And it gives us a very good picture of the contribution government is making and that which is being made by the state in research and development investment. Now, from the last survey, there is a concern that we're beginning as the public sector to be outpaced by the private sector. And so we need to up the public sector investment in research and development, because that's what helps to put a country on the leading edge of innovation. The second important instrument is a facility that is available to the private sector to claw back through a tax incentive in the tax law a large proportion of the outlay that they make toward research, development, and innovation. This tax incentive was introduced in 2012, and we are able to then provide the House with an indication that over 500 private sector companies have benefited from this tax incentive since 2012. And you only approve application on very strict criteria on research and innovation. So we're seeing large numbers of applicants, but those who will successfully claw back the incentive have to prove in terms of the legislation that what they're claiming relates to original research, has resulted in an innovative product or service that can be identified as such, and that the full processes associated with research were followed in arriving at the outcomes that they report on. I thought as well, just in conclusion, that I should indicate, Chairperson, that through an assessment of the applications that we receive from the private sector, that I could give the House a sense of the classification of the private sector companies in terms of the applications I've approved in the period 2012 to February 2017. The bulk of applications came from the manufacturing sector. The next largest investor in R&D is the financial and business services, and as I said earlier, you as honorable members can see this because the banks have changed so vastly, and it is clear that they are investing in research. Then the next is mining and quarrying, and the fourth large claimants come from the agriculture and related sectors. You then have, at a lesser number, electricity, gas, and water supply, and then you have the pharmaceutical sector and other sectors that also apply for the incentive. So the manufacturing sector and financial services stand out as significant investors in research and development. The questioners also asked, are there any examples? Well, there are several examples, but unfortunately, I can't name the companies, Chairperson. So I can only refer to them as Company X, which developed a new generation carbon efficiency, cobalt-based gas-to-liquid catalyst, or Company Y, which developed an embedded sensor device, which is installed in novel products such as cars to enable the recovery of stolen vehicles. Or Company Z, which developed an augmented reality application, which enables users to view real-world environment enhanced by overlying computer-generated layers of information through mobile screens. So these are examples of some of the innovative activities of South African companies. We are really pleased that with us able to approve over 60% of the applications we receive from a range of companies, we have a clear indication that the private sector is indeed investing in research and development. And I think that's very exciting for our country. We would like to see more of the small and medium-sized enterprises, because it tends to be your bigger corporates that benefit from the tax incentive. And we are looking at how we reshape, along with Treasury, the tax amendment in order to allow greater access for small and medium-sized businesses. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mtimunye.
Thank you, House Chair. Thank you, Honorable Minister, on behalf of Mr. Sfago, of course. Honorable Minister, you make reference to the fact that as a department you use, as for a lack of better word, as barometer in terms of the involvement or the extent of the private sector in the innovation in the country. But then, judging by the annual surveys that you're doing, would you, with total conviction or partial conviction, say that as a country are readying ourselves to on the fourth industrial revolution that is branded about countrywide and the world at large?
Honorable Minister.
Well, I think that a number of our companies are already world-class in terms of the technology that they use. You would see many companies do use artificial intelligence, for example. Where I think we still need to do more is to link these technological developments to improve social services. That we still need to do. So we need to see artificial intelligence in use in our health services, for example, so that if we can do the initial assessment of myself as a patient arriving at a hospital, and you gauge my blood pressure, my temperature, etc., and then assess that actually I'm not in such a terrible condition that I have to see a doctor, and thus I can go to a clinical nurse or some other health support professional, so that we then allow those who have more serious ailments to actually be seen by medical professionals. So we have to develop those levels, I think, of support within the public services in order to ensure that we enhance quality and efficiency. Border management is another area where I think we need to have far improved support through innovative technologies. So there are a range of areas. As we get older, we're looking at robots and the possibility of them supporting us to live a more comfortable quality of life. And there are countries that are well advanced, but we are well aware as government of the need to begin to prepare our country to take advantage of the prevalence of technology in the world and to ensure that we are not left behind. So we've recently established an interministerial committee on the fourth industrial revolution, made up of the various departments in the economic sector who are looking at what we should do to enhance research and innovation support in these areas of expanding use of technology, ensuring that in robotics and laser technology and many other areas, we are not left behind, but that we are in the front rank. Fortunately, as South Africa, we do have in our science councils already advanced technologies in use. As you know, we have a National Nanotechnology Center. We have nanotechnology innovation centers at various universities supported by our department. And in laser technology, we have the National Laser Center at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. So a lot of work is being done, but I really think that much more must be done by South Africa in the area of robotics and in the link between technology innovation and support to society.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Mohapi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Honourable Minister, South Africa is a scarce country when it comes to issues of water. We visited Ditsobotla, my apology, where we realized that our people are still struggling with the issue of sanitation. I just want to check with the Minister, any means that the department is coming up together with the private sector to ensure that to expedite, especially around issues of innovations of addressing sanitation challenges like the areas in Ditsobotla where our people are still without sanitation. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, it's a very interesting way of linking the innovation to the original question, but I'll leave it to the Honourable Minister.
Hey.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you. Yes, it is very interesting. I wanted to perhaps, Chairperson, seek your guidance because there is a question on water that I will be responding to,
Yeah.
and I could touch on the matter of sanitation perhaps at that
Yeah,
point.
no, we'll do justice when we get to it. That is why I commented before allowing you. Honourable Minister, let me now invite you to deal with question 302 asked by Honourable Mokwele. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yes, it is the very question on water. Chairperson, it's important to say that support for innovation and development in the water sector, both in terms of purification and saving water technology, there's a range of work underway. But we don't do it alone as the Department of Science and Technology, because in South Africa, we have an unusual arrangement in comparison to other countries, in that not all research councils fall under my department. So we have sector departments that have research councils following under their remit. The peculiar thing is, although they exist there, we tend to have to fund them. And so I'm hoping one day that the NCOP will support us to actually rearrange and ensure that the resources are directed to those councils by the sector departments. The Departments of Water and Sanitation has an excellent water research commission, and we work with them in promoting projects and research into water and sanitation innovation. We've established together what we call the Water Technologies Demonstration Program, which essentially is a process one, of generating innovation ourselves, or two, identifying innovation already in existence or in service in other regions of the world. So we work with colleagues throughout the world. And if we identify a promising technology, we then together test it in South Africa. So working with WADA, we've begun to increase the adoption in South Africa of appropriate technologies which are enhancing the water innovation value chain. We provide funding to the Water Research Commission to support technology demonstration through this initiative, WADA, on an annual basis. And I just thought I should give one or two examples. The first innovation is called AquaTrip. It is a permanently installed water leak detection and reaction system which monitors the flow of water into one's property from 15 to 100 millimeter pipe diameters. If a leak, burst pipe, or dripping toilets, cistern, etc., is detected, the AquaTrip automatically shuts off the water and sends a warning notice to the user that there is a leak on the property. So the technology has the ability to distinguish between normal usage and leaks due to its patented flow sensor. It can pick up as little as 30 milliliters of flow in the pipes. It's a very sensitive sensor. I'm told that it detected leaks 755 times over 60 days in the piloting process. And it therefore saved 3,785 liters of water. No, I can count. I count very well. 3,785,000 liters of water, which translates to 25.3 million liters saved annually. That's pretty good. So that's one of the innovations, and there are many others, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mokwele, it's fine. Honorable Mokwebo.
Minister, I'm sure you will agree with me that we cannot tap into innovation when we are facing challenges as a country. Generally, we should be an innovative country and promote that stance, and there should be programs in schools where our learners are encouraged to be innovative in all spheres. It be water, it be energy saving and whatever. Because why I'm saying this, because in the fee schools or formerly Model C schools, these programs are there. But little we see in no-fee schools, that is township schools, rural schools. I know you have a few pilot programs. I know in the province, Eastern Cape, there's one there in Koffenvalley area, but we need to see more. What is the problem of us not seeing more? Are you lacking resources, or is that, what could be the problem, Minister? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Mokwebo. I don't agree with you, because when you're facing problems, that's when you should seek out innovation. That is what innovation is about, to assist you to address problems. It helps you to identify solutions. And while indeed you're correct that there are pilots that are supported by my department, the responsible department is basic education. We collaborate with them. We have a joint set of initiatives that we implement together. And as you know, through the new Norms and Standards Amendment in the Schools Act, in terms of the building of new school infrastructure, part of the norms and standards require the provision of basic facilities such as science laboratories, libraries, and so on. And that is why you have heard recently the Minister of Basic Education and her colleagues, the MECs in the various provinces, talking about building state-of-the-art schools in order to ensure that we have these facilities and all children in our country enjoy access to them. And having been in New Brighton recently, meeting young people during the Science Week, I want to say to you, Honourable Member, if you visit some of the Quintile 1 schools that are participating in science Olympiads, you'll be really amazed at the talent that we have in our country. And a range of institutions are lending their effort and support to initiatives to increase the competence of our young people in science and technology, including the ESCOM that we pillory so often. They support a very, very huge national science Olympiad, which thousands of schools participate in, and our young people are then judged through the Olympiad process, and the top 5 proceed to the International Science Olympiad, and it's amazing that in the last 5 years, we've always featured among the top 3 as the young people of this country. So I think in times of challenge, let's focus on innovation and we'll find solutions. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for the responses. But I think we all know that South Africa is a water-scarce country. The last time I know, amongst
Honourable Dlamini, can you withdraw lokumdlalisa
No, ngiyamdlalisa, Chair.
nabakithi?
Ngiyamdlalisa.
Okay. Honourable Dlamini, you are protected.
But on a serious note, it's disturbing me, Chair. Honourable Chair, I was saying, we all know that South Africa is a water-scarce country. The last time I know, we were amongst the top 30 countries that are water-scarce. Therefore, it shows that we've got a serious problem in terms of water. I just want to check with you, Honourable Minister, that don't you think that it will be good that you invest in terms of bursaries to the people who will be using the technologies that you've just referred to now, that instead of waiting for the research outcomes and then when they are there, we don't have people to implement?
Honourable Minister.
Indeed, the Honourable Dlamini is correct, Chairperson. And with any initiative that my department undertakes, we always provide support for human capital development. So always we have bursaries for honours, masters and PhD, because we believe we must increase the stock of knowledge workers in our country. And to address the water shortages, which you're so correct about, we have introduced water-saving technology in sanitation through our initiative in Kofimvaba that the Honourable Mukwebu referred to. We've introduced what's called an Aramlu, developed by colleagues and researchers in India. This toilet uses between 1 and 2.5 litres of water per flush, which is an amazing and substantial saving of water. We're currently testing it, still in the demonstration phase, but even the reception of the community to the technology has been very positive. We also have a grey water recycling system, which collects, treats, and stores and recycles domestic grey water for toilet flushing without the need for external energy sources. So we are devising technologies that will address the issue of water scarcity. And I know that in the province of the Western Cape, and we hope in the Eastern Cape as well, due to the wave energy in the waters in that province, we'll be able to begin testing technologies that will support desalination and other ways of recovering water that can be used by communities. So indeed, we are giving attention to these areas, including the human capital development that you so correctly referred to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question 2. 7-8, asked by Honorable Nita. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm pleased to report that the Technology Innovation Agency supports a significant number of small and medium enterprises, primarily through the Technology Stations program. This includes 2,250 SMMEs in the past financial year of 2016-17 and 2,188 in the 2015-16 financial year. The demographic profile that the member asked me about is the following. In 2016-17, we provided support to SMMEs led by 619 women out of the total I referred to. 1,302 were Black-owned, 1,167 were youth-owned, and as I've said, 619 women-owned. In the previous year, 1,347 were Black-owned, 933 were youth-owned, and 664 were women-owned. Of course, what we hope with the support that we provide is the SMMEs move into full use of these technologies and no longer require the support that we have. And our support is intended to assist them to be able to provide innovative products that they can then offer in contracting with large companies and thus taking up large tenders and large contracts. And several have succeeded through the assistance of Technology Innovation Agency to do just that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Nita.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you as well to the Minister for the response. But what I would like, Honorable Minister, do you have universities that are participating in such innovative projects? If so, which provinces are benefiting from those things?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We have technology stations that are in every region in South Africa, in all provinces. So all universities would host at least one. And they are providing support, our science councils as well. If we are unable to locate them in your regular universities, we then place them at universities of technology, such as Vaal University of Technology, Durban University of Technology, Mangosuthu. So it's throughout the country, right through to University of Zululand. And what that has helped us to do is reach large numbers of SMMEs, which would never have access to agro-processing, to 3D printing technology. In addition to the technology stations, we have provided fairly advanced facilities at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. So if, for example, you have an SMME, as there are now, that has discovered a hair product that helps me to comb my hair, which is sometimes very difficult. There's a biorefinery at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research with biologists able to support the persons who've produced these hair products and help them to quality assure and meet the standards of the South African Bureau of Standards and get their products on the shelves.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Isaac.
Chairperson, thank you so much again for the opportunity. Honorable Minister, it's great to see you in the House. My follow-up, Honorable Minister, is absolutely relevant to the second part of my colleague's question. And it goes something like this. In the recent developments in KZN, the Economic Development MEC Sile Zikalala has obviously been trying to shake up the BEE policies to benefit black Africans. You've seen this in the press and it's headline news also. Through a policy where government contracts, Minister, Chairperson, I'm trying to communicate
Honorable
with the
members,
Minister.
let's allow Honorable Isaac to raise this question to the
Thank you. I
Minister.
just want the Minister to capture it correctly.
Yes.
So
You are protected, Honorable
thank you.
Isaac.
Indeed, grateful, Chair. So, Honorable Minister, MEC Zikalala has obviously been trying to shake up the BEE policies to benefit black Africans through a policy where government contracts worth more than 50 million rand must not be given to Indians and Coloureds. Now, my question is very simple, Honorable Minister. Who then, in fact, is black enough to receive government contracts then? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Isaac, I'll leave it to the Honorable Minister. You know that your supplementary question, no, you can take your seat. It's not linked to the original question, but I'll leave it to the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister.
I think the honourable member has asked the question. The question I'm answering has demographics as part of the replies sought, and so it's fine if he asks about demographics. As I said in the National Assembly, there is no change in the policy of government with respect to black economic empowerment policy. And a statement by any person, be they 1 or 1 million, does not change national policy. The way we change national policy is through Parliament making amendments. And I think it's important, as members of Parliament, that we explain to the nation how policy is formulated and where it may be altered or not altered. Now, one of the things that we must all acknowledge is we do need to ensure that more people of African descent in this country enjoy greater economic opportunity. This is an undeniable objective that all of us should pursue. But we also are aware that in terms of our constitution, the measures we take must not defeat the objectives of equality, but we are allowed by the Constitution, if we are pursuing affirmative action that is corrective in terms of discrimination we are all aware of, that we would take particular steps. But as I'm aware at this moment, there has been no amendment to the existing BEE policy of government, which drives national implementation of such strategies.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we now come to question 279, asked by Honorable Mlambo. Honorable Minister.
I think as a department really been very clear that when we establish organizations or entities, we should not have them having overlapping mandates. So we've been very careful when we frame the law that we avoid duplication and any overlapping of responsibility. So for example, I've recently submitted to Parliament an amendment bill on the National Research Foundation, because there were aspects that I felt needed greater emphasis and clarity in terms of policy development. So that will clarify certain aspects of the responsibilities of the NRF. But having said that, I'm not concerned that the Academy of Sciences, the Technology Innovation Agency, or NACI, the National Advisory Council on Innovation, are in any way overlapping in the mandates that they have. And I really think it would be important that honorable members do look at the appropriate legislation to understand what the different roles of these institutions are. One is an advisory body. The Academy of Sciences is a membership organization of very senior and experienced, established scientists. And the Technology Innovation Agency is directed to identify opportunities for innovation and ensure that we do not miss those opportunities and that we invest in those who have some exciting new ideas. But let me conclude, Chairperson, by saying, in my view, the system of innovation in our country, the institutions we have remained more or less the same since 1994. But what we've succeeded in, we've increased the human capacity. So we've got young people with PhDs, with engineering qualifications, with technology, but we don't have the institutions to absorb them. So I initiated a study last year on what we call the institutional landscape of the national system of innovation. And it was my view then, and the report appears to agree with me, that we need to consider expanding the system because we have many more knowledge workers in our country, much more talent that we've honed since democracy. And we need to have institutions that will utilize them, absorb them, and ensure that they support our country to enhance innovation and research. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Mlambo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Minister. Thank you very much for a detailed answer. I don't have a follow-up question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mlambo. Honorable Minister, we now comes to question, Honorable Keila. Honorable Mhlashupin. Honorable Keila.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Minister, I missed you. I should have asked this question earlier, but I know you will be able to answer it. I'm trying to...
Can you come closer to the mic?
I'm trying to smuggle a question in here. As far as you know, is there any technology that is being designed to purify seawater, seeming that we are a water-scarce country? I know you'll answer that to you.
Honorable members.
Don't worry about the howlers here.
Honorable members.
Thank you, Minister.
Honorable members, it's very clear, he smuggled the question. Let's leave it to the minister. If the minister is going to answer. Honorable Minister.
Chairperson, Honorable Gila has just answered himself, actually. Because he says he was listening earlier, and he knows that we are... we have a desalination thing. You know, Honorable Gila, sit down, calm down. Honorable Gila, don't worry. He will be part of a one-member caucus very soon. Don't worry. Yes, there are technologies, some of which are being considered already in some of our provinces. But really, it's at the proof of concept stage. It's still early days, but there are scientists and technologists out there who've come forward to say, here's technology, we'd like government to invest in testing it.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, we come to question 293, asked by Honorable Julius. In terms of our rules, it's not in the House. A proper arrangement was made. Honorable Lont will be standing for Honorable Julius. Honorable Minister. Hey, Kayla, allow the minister to respond.
Well, I don't think that having a budget would have a negative impact on our competitiveness. Our competitiveness is enhanced by what we do with the resources that we have available to us. And I think South Africa, in the last few years, has been able to show the world that indeed it can be globally competitive. That's why we secured the square kilometer array bid. That's why our scientists are participating in a lead fashion in the vaccines development and trials for HIV prevention. That's why our scientists and institutions are developing a new malaria drug. That's why we are doing leading research in tuberculosis treatments and diagnostic tools. So we are competitive. What we've got to do is ensure that our universities, our researchers who are able and competent in these fields are properly supported. And of course, the key thing we have to do is grow our economy so that we do increase the resources available for research and development. But I think, Chairperson, it's important to stress finally that the private sector also has to come to the party. Because as I said, we need to encourage the private sector in South Africa to do even more than it is doing currently, because that's how other countries' economies have grown. It's the contribution of the private sector into research, development, and innovation, not just the public investment in this that would make a difference. So we do want more funding. It would certainly aid us, but I think using what we have maximally and really targeting those areas where we have excellence is what our country should clearly also focus upon. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Lond.
Today, Minister. Minister, you have stated previously that you were not happy with the 2016-17 budget because it showed no increase. Even the 2015-16 budget did not show an increase either. This budget had, as you can see, has no real increase from previous years. It was basically kept up with inflation. Last year you said that evidence shows that countries that invest in science and technology during a global downturn did better than others when conditions start improving. You also said we are going to lose people to countries that are marshalling resources in innovation. Now you just made the call that private sector needs to come to the party a bit more. But how can you make that call when government is not willing to do that? Minister, you clearly think that the ANC government do not take innovations as a means to grow the economy seriously. You've given a very good answer trying to defend the budget that you've got now. Is this still the view of you, given that the real increases in the budget and that of the previous years?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Of course, as a member of the ANC, I'll always defend the ANC and be proud to do so. With respect to the budget, I'm number me. With respect to the budget, I obviously would want to see South Africa meet its commitment that by 2020 it must be providing 1.5% of GDP for science, technology, and innovation. This is our target, and we're working hard to ensure that we meet it. But, as I said, bottom line is our economy has to grow. And the economy not growing is not solely and purely the reason or the fault of this government. It's related to a wide range of sectors in our country. We know that the private sector has a large amount of resources that are not being invested in infrastructure or any form of capital in the country. And we want to see increased take-up of the challenges of South Africa, not just by the public sector, but by all sectors in our country. Because the ANC didn't cause the problems that we confronted with. We inherited them as part of a legacy of a terrible discriminatory system of social engineering. And we must acknowledge that. And as we act to change our society, it is those very aspects that we inherited which reflect this discrimination that we must fundamentally address. This is why we are invested in ensuring we build small and medium-sized enterprises' capability, and that they become innovative, they become successful, and that they participate in the broader corridors of business transactions and business development. So we understand as the ANC the sorts of challenges we're confronted with, and we know what must be done. So of course as with every other minister, I suppose, I'm not entirely satisfied with my budget. But I'm realistically aware of the challenges confronting my country. And one thing you can be certain of, whatever cent I get, I will put it to good use in science, technology, and innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Mohai.
Chairperson, Minister, just to follow up on what coordination in funding for innovation across spheres of government. And the second one, well, it's related.
Honourable Mohai, you are asking...
No, one question.
Yeah,
It's one question,
yeah.
but I'm just saying...
Ask your question.
Yeah, something related. Is there any progress in relation to Sovereign Innovation Fund?
Yes.
Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Well, we are working hard on improving coordination, Chairperson. We're not quite where I'd like us to be, but I think, as I indicated, with the work we're doing with the Water Research Commission, that we have a vastly improved level of cooperation between ourselves, research in the health sector, research in agriculture. In fact, next week, we will be launching a new wheat germ seed that we have developed along with the agricultural sector. It is drought resistant and has a larger yield, and we're very excited at that development. And it was my department, Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, and Agri-SA. And it's the kind of collaboration we would like to see in our country. We're also working hard with Treasury in order to achieve our ambition that we establish a sovereign innovation fund in South Africa. Our discussions on the fund are proceeding very well, and I think that should we be able to establish an initial sovereign innovation fund, it's going to complement in a very positive way the 7 sector innovation funds that we already have, mainly in the fruit and agricultural sectors. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, we now come to question 280, asked by Honourable Singh, who is not in the House. Honourable De Pierre will be standing in for Honourable Singh. Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister.
It's Diwali and we understand. So that is acceptable. We respect each other's religions. Honourable Chairperson, my department makes strenuous efforts to communicate on the services rendered by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research and all science agencies that fall within the remit of my department. So when we launched the new initiative of the Biomanufacturing Industry Development Center, we invited the private sector, small business sector, as well as media outlets. We do also have communication initiatives by the CSIR itself, so it's not only the responsibility of our department, it is also that of the CSIR. In our department, to communicate, we use all forms of social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and a very interactive website of the Department of Science and Technology. And all the entities have similar initiatives underway. But I have realized through knowing and seeing that many members have very little understanding of how their country is competent in science and technology, that we actually need to communicate much more. Because many of us don't appreciate that in many sectors, and I just want to name 3, South African scientists rank as among the top in the world. Astronomy sciences, environmental sciences, and clinical science research. In those 3 domains, we rank among the top in the world, and we will continue to be so with hard work. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable De Pierre.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Minister, we can see that you have very progressive, you and your department, progressive and hands-on approach. Does the CSIR have a provincial footprint so that the people can be made aware of the programs and the services of the CSIR closer to where they live?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yes, the CSIR does have a footprint, not in all provinces. We have CSIR units established in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Western Cape, in Gauteng, and we are now working closely with Mpumalanga and Limpopo in initiatives in beneficiation of mineral resources. But what we are doing, if I could go back to the Chief Whip's earlier question, is we are working more closely now with local government, because the CSIR has amazing competence in providing support services for government delivery, such as geo mapping services, earth observation data, and other service support for local and provincial government, mapping for human settlements, planning data, and other resources, information systems for the health sector, for example. So we're working with our provinces to encourage them to establish provincial innovation centers, because we believe that will help us to massify the presence and impact of innovation institutions throughout the country. So this would be collaboration between DST and, of course, the various provincial governments. The metros have begun to buy in, as have some of the larger municipalities. So I think we're going to see some exciting developments in the next few years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Keila.
Thank you, Minister. I think we only got 10% of the TA. We don't need to worry.
Don't do that. Ask your question.
Chair, Minister, on a serious note, CSIR has developed numerous technologies. One of them is the filling of potholes. The second one is innovative roads. And the last one that I can't remember is the technology on school buildings. Are you happy that the government is making use of these technologies that are being developed in the country? Are you happy with that? If you're not happy, what can be done so that these innovative methods can benefit the country as a whole? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Gila. I am happy when I see some of these technologies taken up. I've seen the Free State, for example, utilizing the technologies we've developed in fuel cells, and I've seen parts of the Northwest using some of the pothole built environment technology that was developed at the CSIR. But I haven't yet seen us fully take up the opportunity of some of the built environment technologies for human settlements that have been developed by the CSIR, and I really would like to see progress there. In the security sector, of course, you know the impact they've had on cash-in-transit heists with the vehicles that they developed. So there are organizations and governments that have begun to take up the technologies. But as I said, I don't think it's prolific yet. I don't think it's sufficiently massified throughout society. And it really links to this issue of the lack of information about what our country is capable of. We still tend to see each other in very negative terms, and we don't believe that we have the capability that I'm referring to. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honourable members, allow me to take this opportunity to thank the Minister of Science and Technology, Minister Pando, for availing herself to deal with questions in the National Council of Provinces. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
And the
Thank you,
Deputy
Honourable
Minister of...
I wish we had you in the National Assembly.
And the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology. Thank you. Honorable members, allow me to take this opportunity under the leadership of the National Council of Provinces to thank you, Chief Whip, working with all the parties, the reps of provinces. Probably since this year is for the first time, since we started on Tuesday, all the ministers, because of the proper planning, they were available to deal with questions, including the issue that was discussed this week of the changes of cabinet. We thought it's going to give us challenges. The ministers were here, they dealt with questions. Keep up the proper planning for effectiveness of a National Council of Provinces. That concludes the business of the day. Honorable members are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the House. The House is adjourned. Thank you.